For a town of its size and commercial significance, Bradford was relatively late in being connected to the national railway network. The Lancashire and Yorkshire achieving this with their line from the Spen Valley via Bowling, which entered the terminus at the Bradford Exchange in May 1850. The Midland and the Great Northern also served the town in due course, but the London and North Western also unsuccessfully sought a route from their Leeds-Dewsbury main line. The section to Birstall was opened in 1852, bringing the company to within 6 miles of the centre of Bradford, but attempts to close the gap proved unsuccessful, and this was as close as the London and North Western got to their erstwhile goal. Passenger services, known locally as the Coddy, were generous during the 19th century. 17 return journeys being offered at one time, but the electric street tramway proved the undoing of this line, as with so many of its neighbours. There was also a station up at Birstall on the Leeds New Line, and this more or less sealed the fate of the line as a passenger route. Services ending it as a wartime economy in 1917 and never being reinstated. Goods traffic continued for almost half a century, finally ending in the 16th of June 1952 with an enthusiast special conveyed into a train of brake vans. Part of the trackbed remains as a cycleway. This short section of line was a loop off the route from Wakefield to Dridlington through Batley, built in order to provide the Great Northern with access to Dewsbury in competition to the London and North Western. Construction commenced from the south, diverging from the main route at Runtlings Lane Junction to the west of Ossett, and the line opened as far as Dewsbury in 1874. The extension beyond Dewsbury to Batley was affected by the trade depression in the late 1870s, and it was 1880 before it was completed, along with a permanent station in Dewsbury. As construction proceeded, there was a series of local campaigns to encourage the Great Northern to construct a line to Cleckheaton from Batley Car, just north of Dewsbury. The bill for the line was rejected by Parliament, but the root of the proposal was the dissatisfaction with the Lancashire and Yorkshire's provision, and the agitation for the Great Northern to act was such that the Lancashire and Yorkshire agreed to improve matters in partnership with the Great Northern. One consequence of the newfound amicability was construction of a link between the two company stations in Dewsbury to allow a circular service from Leeds via Pudsey, Cleckheaton and Batley to be introduced. By the first decade of the 20th century, Dewsbury was served by 4 railway companies: the London and North Western, the Lancashire and Yorkshire, the Great Northern, and after 1906 the Midland, though the newcomer provided good service only. After the Great War, rationalisation was needed, and the Lancashire and Yorkshire station and marketplace was closed from 1930. The Great Northern's route survived until 1964, though Batley Car and Earl's Eton both closed during the early 1950s. This short line was a further link into the Great Northern's fiefdom around Leeds and Bradford, linking Batley with the 1857 route into Leeds at Beeston Junction, crossing the route from Wakefield to Dridlington at Tingley. The line was constructed at the cost of some heavy civil engineering and opened in 1890, late in the age of railway building. This piece of the West Riding jigsaw permitted a number of circular passenger workings, a useful way of attaining an economical method of operation and rolling stock utilisation as could be envisioned. From opening, the line was served by the trains from Leeds running via Ardley, Dewsbury, Batley and Tingley, before returning to the points of origin. 3 trains a day in each direction transverse the route, a kind of Yorkshire equivalent to the London's Circle Line, until curtailed by the outbreak of war in 1939. A second circular route, this time operating in conjunction with the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, which was duly chastised by the threat of its interests by the abortive Great Northern Line to Cleckheaton. This ran from Leeds through Tingley, Batley, Dewsbury, the Lancashire and Yorkshire Spen Valley Line, Low Moor, often described as one of the bleakest stations on the system, and then returned to Leeds through Pudsey. No doubt the Railway Act of the time would have been fascinated by such a working, but the outbreak of Great War saw it suspended, never to be reinstated. Road transport undermined the viability of the route, and passenger and goods services ceased in 1953.